Are you waiting for me to say something?
No, no, I was waiting for the live to go live, and here we are. We are live now. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni, and I use the emotion code, body code, and belief code to help people suffering from chronic pain, chronic illnesses, or unexplained medical conditions to heal or reduce their pain. This podcast mostly help promote the idea of natural healing, alternative healing, and so the people I bring along help mostly to promote this message. So let's get started and see who what message our guest today is going to bring to the table. And let me introduce you to Amy Jo Ellis. Amy Jo, so lovely to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here with you.
Thank
I
you.
love your backdrop. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess for those who only hearing this on the Apple podcast, there's lots of colorful books and Buddhas in my background.
Yes, they're color coded, organized, and I have to say I value that a lot.
Thank you. Right, so let's get started. Amy Jo, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm very excited to have you share your message and story with the world.
All right. Well, I tell people that I'm like a psychic medium, but that's not who I am. I'm a normal, average, everyday person, and I didn't know I had any kind of a talent in that vein until it knocked me up the side of the head and was unbelievably in my face that this was going on. I'll start out with saying that my boss was murdered, and I went, how did you get yourself into that situation? And I just asked the question of how did that happen? And suddenly I saw the whole thing. I recited what I had seen in this vision of what happened to him to my husband, another lady who was standing there, because it freaked me out. It scared me. And she said, you have to take that information to the police. And I said, oh, my husband said, no, no, no. We're on a 4-mile by 7-mile island with murderers on it. We're not sharing that with anybody. And so we didn't say anything. But that night, a police officer came to the door and said, hey, excuse me, the lady, came to us and said that you were with a friend who had this vision. And we wanted you to know that we took that information and we caught them, and that they're in custody, and we want you to thank her. And he winked really hard at me and said, we got him. And it made like my husband and I go, what just happened? Because suddenly I had information that was actually pertinent that the police were able to use. And so if it makes you uncomfortable, that's okay. It makes me uncomfortable too. I didn't like it either. Christian-based background, and not real happy with that. My husband went to school at a Christian school, so he wasn't happy about it. But we've come to realize that it's all coming from God, and that I sit with the Lord's Prayer and recite the Lord's Prayer over and over to get myself into a state that I consider pure, and that only good can come through. And then I started asking questions. Well, one day in this state of asking questions from a real high up level, I asked how to solve a problem with my husband's family where they had been kind of estranged for about 10 years. No one was really talking. And they told me to put their souls into a court of atonement. And I thought, what the heck does that mean? I didn't understand it. And I started looking it up, and I wasn't really finding what made it make sense to me. And my guide said, well, look at it. A court is a place where you solve problems. And atonement, if you just look at the word, says at one-ment. It's putting things back to wholeness. It translates to reconciliation, but it doesn't really mean to reconcile at the human level. It's talking about at the soul level only. Well, I did what they said, and 5 weeks later, on my husband's birthday, all 4 of his siblings and his parents called him and wished him a happy birthday. And none of the talk of the past was there ever again. And so problems just kind of disappear when we use the Court of Atonement. Well, I didn't think, on my husband's birthday, he's like, honey, do you think that weird thing you did had anything to do with this? And I said, well, yeah, I do, because I believe that the energy work that we do and the intentions we set out work. What I didn't realize was we could do it again. And then about a year later, I was at my mom's house and my brother was fighting with his girlfriend in the next room. And I asked, what can I do to get them to stop? And the same information came through, put their souls into a court of atonement. So I put them in a court of atonement. And the next day, my mom goes, what did you do to your brother? He's getting along with everyone so well. And I went, oh my gosh, I put him in a court of atonement. Well, that started us down a road of looking at what those words, court of atonement, again, a place that you resolve conflicts and put things back together. We began using it on anyone and everyone we could think of. And it really came home to roost. My mom was saying, I fall asleep at night, just putting she asked me, first off, she said, do you think this will work for someone who's passed? And my hair stood up because it was a yes answer. Absolutely, this will work. And so I got her, she and I started using it all the time for people who had passed. Her mother and her grandmother had never gotten along, so she wanted to use it between them and try to maybe take some of the strain out of the family. And I'm happy to say we know it worked because I'm having dreams about them at night. So one night that really stands out was my mom, like I said, she said, I'm putting everybody I can think of as I'm going to sleep at night. I'm just having so much fun with this. And one night my husband says, I smell cigarette smoke. And I said, oh, I do too. He got up and walked around our trailer. We lived in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody there. And so later on, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I smell smoke like someone standing in the room smoking. I mean, this is not like a faint smell. This was, oh my gosh, smoke. And I hate that. And I heard a memory of a friend who's a medium saying, oh, I smell tobacco. I wonder what spirit wants to get my attention. And I thought, does a spirit want my attention in this big rush of yes energy? Woo, yes. And I went, oh, who's there? And I saw in my mind's eye a photograph that sits on my parents' piano of my grandfather. And I went, oh, Grandpa, is there something I can do for you? And immediately I started having these thoughts. Tell your father I apologize that things weren't better between us when he was a little boy. Ask him to pardon me for that. And tell your mother thank you for the prayers. Well, the next day, I'm like, how do I tell my dad that? I have to give the message, but how do I tell it to my dad? Because he doesn't believe any of this. And so I did the next thing, which is to call Mom. And my mom went, oh, I put your father and his father in a court of atonement yesterday. And so that was not a dream. I was awake. And my husband was awake when he smelled the smoke the first time. So we began having these very astounding results that what we were doing was helping, that other people were getting the benefit of it. The beauty of using this process is to do this work at the soul level is you don't have to ask their permission. And the reason you don't have to ask permission is it's intrusive to work on someone energetically, even if your intentions are good. But this is asking the soul to do it. And so you're not really imposing your will upon them. You're saying, I place their soul in a court of atonement and I ask them to do this. And if the soul says no, it's just a no, nothing changes.
And this is definitely very fascinating. Since we first spoke, I of course experimented with some of this on my own, and some really funny things happened. I mean, funny in the sense that I did one thing on my mum, and she had some eczema thing that was really bothering her for a long time, and the next day she said actually it completely disappeared, and the shock of that was, well, still shocking, but was so wonderful. I was like, okay.
Yes. Well, my approach so did you just put her in a court of atonement to resolve like the reasons she had eczema or something?
Yeah, I used the one that talks about illnesses or pain or one of them. And
okay. Yeah, my take on this is a lot of the illnesses and the pain and the suffering come from like buried memories that we have. And when we use the court of atonement to solve the conflict with a person, then we have this side effect of changes in our health to improvements in our health. That's the way I want to say it, improvements in our health. We see major improvements. So yeah, that is really wonderful that she had that result. That's great. Or that you did. And it's a matter of like using our mind with intention, and our thoughts and our words create. So when we're focusing to put those words out in a way that we are looking for this desired outcome, that's what helps to bring it in. People are always afraid. Oh, I'm afraid to use the Court of Atonement, that I'll make a mistake. And it's hard to make a mistake with the Court of Atonement. It just doesn't work if you make a mistake. So there's really like no fear. Just throw it out there. Give it a try. The recipe for it is to say your name. Our names really activate a lot of energy for us. It connects us and grounds us and allows us to be like at full power. So we start with our name, and then you place whoever you want into the Court of Atonement. You have to say the words Court of Atonement. So it's first your name, then the name of what you're after, and then say Court of Atonement. And then the fourth thing is to ask for the desired outcome, and to say, okay, I'm asked to resolve her eczema, or the reasons she has the eczema is even better, because then it goes back after, did she have a fight with somebody? I usually look at skin problems as who got under your skin. And because quite often there's irritations with other people. I've worked with a lady who had real severe sinus nasal allergies, and it was in the middle of COVID, and her husband and her children were home all the time. And suddenly she had horrible allergies. Well, these are the people she loves most in the world, but she was having a little conflicts with them. And with a little bit of work with the Court of Atonement, all of her sinus allergies that she'd been plagued with for like 20 years went away. So she was like, and then she came back like 2 years later and she goes, uh-oh, I'm noticing signs of allergies. We did it again. Oh, new job, new boss, cleared that. And the allergies went away. So things that irritate us are usually show up as symptoms as irritation, whether it's in a nasal or coughing or skin.
Yeah. So do you do that with anyone that comes to you? Do you try and get them, or to try and understand the situation and who they have conflict with and stuff? Or is it really just getting them to repeat this text that you have?
Well, I don't want them to go in and relive the event, but so if I have someone who comes to me, let's say with Lyme's disease, my terminology for Lyme's disease is lying, cheating bastards disease, because notoriously, working with people over the years, someone is in a conflict of great torment, like going through a divorce or whatever, when it came on. And so their first symptoms of Lyme disease came on in the middle of, going through a divorce or going through a reunion one time with a person they had divorced. The person was wanting to come back and they didn't want them back. And there was all this resistance. And so those symptoms flared. When I work with a person who has Lyme's disease, I'll say, okay, I would like you to go back in your mind to what was going on at that time. And then you see who the key players are. Who were you in? And then I just say, in case some of you are saying, oh, that sounds like me, think about any illness or ailments that you have. Look back at your life. What was going on right before or during those symptoms showing up? What was going on? And what big stresses were going on? And then you just say, and you state your name, first, middle, and last. State your name. Place myself and say your name again, because now you're indicating who you're working with. Place myself, say their name. And then I into a full Court of Atonement with, and bring in those key players. Bring in everyone that was around at that time, and try to bring them all in, even your kids. If it was something that happened at work, bring your family in too. Bring in as many people as you can think of. Ask to analyze our timelines and resolve any and all conflicts between us. So I place myself into a full Court of Atonement with this person, asked to analyze our timelines and resolve any and all conflicts between us. And then there's an added statement. I ask for amenable dissolution of this energy. And that's just a bonus. That's just like a line that pushes the energy forward. So I ask for amenable dissolution of this energy. And it means an agreeable conclusion of that energy. I asked why didn't they just use the words agreeable conclusion, and they said because many a jilted their terms, please forgive me. Many a jilted housewife does not want to forgive him. So they don't want it to be agreeable. They want him to pay. So, but agreeable means that your soul agrees that what he is doing to repent is enough. So you don't have to worry about, no, this is, have you ever walked out of a bad day where like you lost in a court or you lost something didn't go right, and you just said, someday they'll know what they did to me. Someday they will make amends for that. Today's the day. Because it's being done at the soul level. If you put them in a court of atonement, it makes them aware. So it's kind of the life review that we talk about it, but we get to do it now during our lives so that the two souls can look at it and see what would be the better approach to take.
I think it's quite a fascinating, really topic. Like you say, here we are, person to person, and yes, we may have conflict or we may not, but really to say actually, it's not just that we want to solve this on the person to person level. We really want to go to the soul level, and there we have no influence, right? It really is about our souls looking at things.
The soul exists in a realm that has no time and has no human emotions harming it. Whereas if we were to sit down, let's just say, okay, if I were to bring in a person and say, I just want you to know I forgive you, they'll go, for what? For what? And immediately there's this defensive. But at the soul level, the two can talk, communicate, and say, okay. And I talk about when I talk with my guides, which what I do is I ask a question. I get my energy really high saying the Lord's Prayer, and then I ask a question, and then I let that answer come to me, and I stenography write it down, So I asked my guide one time about forgiveness, and he said forgiveness has two ingredients. The first ingredient is understanding what happened, and the second ingredient is accepting that reason. So it's understanding and acceptance. So if I like to take the example of, let's say, a scene in a movie where a woman has made dinner, she's got the candles lit, the wine's on the table chilling, and then the next scene is fast forward, the candles have burned down, only one glass has anything out of it. He's obviously not come. She's upset, but she's like a little worried what happened. She can't reach him on the phone. She doesn't know what's going on. And then another hour, she's talking to her girlfriend. Oh my gosh, he's never done anything like this. I'm really worried about him. Then 4 hours later, she's going, I know he's cheating on me. This is exactly what that other guy did to me. And blah, blah, blah. And now she gets really worked up, angry. And when he walks in the door, she says, where were you? Now his answer is going to do one of two things. It's either going to calm her down or it's going to throw gasoline on the fire. So he's going to say, when he walks in, if he says to her, oh, I went out with the guys and had a drink and forgot, she's going to go, what? Do you have any idea how much work I put, and that didn't calm it down. She may understand what happened, but she did not accept it. But if he walks in the door and goes, there was a really horrible accident, she goes, oh, are you okay? Where'd that anger go? It's gone in 1 second. She understood there was a real problem and she accepted it. And so when we have understanding and acceptance, it just falls out of our nervous system. All the upset just disappears. So the Court of Atonement goes in and says, you put this woman and that man in a Court of Atonement and resolve the conflicts at their points of origin. So now the conflict, when we look at it at the human level, we think that the conflict was he didn't come home for dinner. But the point of origin really was earlier in the day when her husband was at work and his boss came in and got in his face, yelling at him for something he didn't do and threatened to fire him. And then it got solved. But his friend goes, man, don't take that energy home to your wife. Let's go out. Let's have a drink. Let's talk about this. Let's calm down and then go home. So he has a reason that he went out to have a drink. He had an understandable reason. He had a really bad day at work. And once her soul sees that, she goes, oh, and all that energy drains away when the real understanding comes in. Because very seldom is the point of origin this moment. You know, it's like leaving the toothpaste off the tooth, you know, cap off the toothpaste. That's never it, really. That's not it. We might think it's it in that moment, but it isn't.
Yeah. So tell me, so there you are. I had this download of this statement that you mentioned about the Court of Atonement. Use it on your husband, then later on use it on your brother. Then what? How did it get to where it is today, where you're taking it to all these people and you're doing live classes as well and teaching people how to use it?
Okay, well, one more big event happened that made me recognize its value, and that was my mentor in Puerto Rico had gone in and he'd had hip replacement surgery, and he nearly died on the table. He nearly bled to death, and he had massive complications, and usually they're in and out in 45 minutes, and he was 9 days in intensive care. It went so bad for him, but it was the good leg that they did first, and now they have to go in and do the second hip, and he's terrified. He's just like, this is going to kill me. And I said, the reason it went so badly for you is because all of your pent up energy in your hips is coming because your father abandoned you when you were 13. So you have all this unforgiveness. Oh, I've forgiven him. And I'm like, he's like, I forgave that a long time ago. And it's like, that really isn't forgiveness. I know that you stopped being overtly angry at him, but I said, really, I said, you don't have any closure with that. You never saw him again. And he'd only gotten to see him once. He saw him he left him when he was 13. He saw him again when he was 22, went to dinner with him, got mad at him, decked him, and left. Didn't have a lot of closure. And then but he had met his twin sisters that came from another marriage, and they had contacted him like 5 years before what we're talking about, and had invited him to go and to go see them, and to try to get closer because he was in the hospital. They thought he was dying at the time, and he went there, but his father had Alzheimer's so bad he couldn't get any conclusion. He didn't get any help from that. So I told him, I said, I'm doing this thing at the soul level, and that your soul could talk to your dad's soul and get that peace you're looking for. Well, I said goodbye to him. This is the night before the surgery. He said, I'll do it. So we walked him through the Court of Atonement. 3 days later, I called him to see how the surgery went, and he didn't answer. Well, when he called me back like within a half an hour, and he's like, I'm sorry I didn't answer. I was on the phone with my father. And I was like, what? How did that happen? And he said that he woke up this morning remembering who he was, remembering what he'd done, and wanted to talk to me. And my sisters put him on the phone with me. He apologized for abandoning me. And he told me that he'd gotten his girlfriend pregnant, and that he had to go be with her because she was pregnant with the twins. And so he got some understanding. I can't tell you that the man regained his cognizance and stayed, because they were estranged, and he never talked to him again. He just talked to him that one time. And so I can't tell you what happened beyond that on the father's part, but I can tell you that everything turned around for this gentleman, who's, once again, the surgery wasn't going well, and all the upset and everything kind of just, it had drained away. And this time that surgery was a breeze for him. And that the relief he felt with his father physically calling and telling him, apologizing to him, really changed this gentleman's emotional state. Like, he was angry all the time, and that kind of passed. So having seen what happened there, that the father called after this man was 65 years old and hadn't seen his father since he was 22 and had been abandoned since he was 13. Um, you get that this is a big, astounding thing. This is a miracle. And I saw it and went, oh my God, I can teach people to use this. And so the where I like to use it the most is in the relationship departments between people, and allow the healing to be the side effect rather than I'm going to go after the illness itself. I like really using at what caused that illness, because there's always trauma in the background of it. And the Court of Atonement really works to resolve that trauma and cause peace within the body and the soul.
Yeah. I totally get that. I totally agree, of course, that, when I work with people, I always want to know what happened before the outset of the illness or the pain or whatever it is that they're going through, because I know that there is a lot of stress and trauma and things that impacted them in a way that maybe they were not even able to understand.
Right. I had a woman who called me so you said, how did I get to where I am now? I was encouraged by another mentor to write a booklet. And so I wrote a very small booklet. It's now 48 pages long, I think. I wrote this little 8-page booklet, but it didn't explain enough. And 14 people bought it over the course of 4 months or something. Well, one of the ladies, Jackie bought it, and she uses her family as guinea pigs. And so she started putting them into Court of Atonement to see what happened. And she received a text from her daughter, and the text, you can like there's a photograph of the text where it says, "Mom, are you using some relationship energy work on me again?" About relation. She started using energy work on relationships on me again. And her mom goes, "Yes, I used the Court of Atonement. Why?" That's in the picture. And it says, "My first boyfriend from high school just called me and apologized for the way he treated me for about a half an hour. Very cool, Mom." And so she took that snapshot of that, the phone front, and she posted it in a emotion code body code group on Facebook and said, "Hey, check this, this just happened," sent that in. And it caused me to sell like 40 books overnight. And then from there, someone sent it to someone who I was a big fan of, a guy by the name of Raymond Grace. And Raymond Grace is a YouTube, he calls himself a hillbilly from Virginia. I would call him a wizard. Anyway, he used douses with a pendulum. I was a big fan of his, and one day the phone rings. "Hi, this is Raymond Grace. I just read your book. I want to tell you I had some remarkable results with that." And he had used it for his wife and her family, and his brother-in-law had been his best friend, but there'd been a falling out and he hadn't seen him in many years. Showed up on his front door the next morning and said, "I want to bury the hatchet. I don't know what happened between us. I want my friend back." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, that worked so well." So I got this endorsement from Raymond. He then wrote about it in his newsletter and sent it out. And then all of a sudden I had 400 books sold overnight, and then 1,000. And I'm upwards of about 40,000 books have been sold now. And it's all been word of mouth.
That is
passed around on the internet.
Yeah. And I got one.
You got one?
I got one, yes. And of course, I was waiting for us to talk today. And then, of course, I was going to share it as well, because it's so simple. And, you have nothing to lose, right? Like you say, you do your best, you do your worst, whatever it is that you do, something is going to happen. So I am very, very excited to, for the ripple effect of introducing you to my listeners and my viewers. So tell me so now your books is out there, like you said, it's gone viral. How do you use it these days? How are you working with people nowadays?
Well, if they want to come in and like ask me a question or whatever, I ended up with a year-long waiting list within about a month. So when it started, when it went viral, I had a year-long waiting list to get in, and I was doing four sessions a day, 5 days a week. And I had a year booked out with no vacation time booked in there. So I was like, stop. So I stopped the calendar, and then I put on these one-on-one group sessions so that you can come in, you raise your hand to be worked with, or you don't. And I have new people who are not they're not real well versed, although I would love it if you read the booklet first. There's one out, or just go through if you go to my website, courtofatonement.com, at the top, there's a bar that says 14 days of free lessons. I want to make this affordable. So the booklet is $5, but you can join for free and get the information that you need. So even if you're from, some people call me from countries where they just really don't have any money, you have the availability to get this for free. If you'll at least get some of that before you come in, that'll be very helpful. But I do have people who are really brand new to the information. They come in and for it's $25 to join in on this class. And I work with the people who raise their hand, and you get to follow along. And if even if it doesn't pertain to you, if you put yourself in a court of atonement with the people around you and try to you'll get so much relief. I have people calling me all the time or sending me emails saying, I didn't have the courage to raise my hand, and I want you to know everything you said in that class was so pertinent. For some reason, our guides just have the ability to get us the information we need. And so it might not be every person in the call, but there will be at least one or two who work on something similar, and you get to work on it too. And so the way we do it is open forum. And the more we understand each other, the more we learn to respect each other and to love each other. We feel a kinship within those people, a camaraderie and a kinship with these people who are vulnerable enough to share their problems. It's really amazing how much joy and love there is in that group. So
yeah, amazing. But tell me, so you say you mostly like to talk about relationships and between people and the trauma and stuff like that. So what if someone kind of doesn't want to go there, like they know that they had a very maybe challenged history with the family when they were younger, but don't really know, would they just, do they need to know, or can they just randomly put names of people and then just see how it goes?
they can randomly put names. And but I work with pain a little differently. I gave you an example of it. It'll just say, okay, like for I'll just say, okay, let's take this pain that you have, like someone will say they got pain in their lower back, but they can't think of anybody that's upsetting them. I'll just say, okay, feel around the edges of that. What size box would you put it in? And then what color would you wrap it? And so they'll say size of a Mack truck, and I'll say, okay, and what color is it? It's black. And then how would you embellish it? How would you make that? How would you wrap it? You'd wrap it black, but how would you embellish it to make it look pretty or make it look? And they'd say, I put black stars all over it. And I'll say, okay, use your X-ray vision. Look inside that box. Who or what is in there? And they'll go, oh my God, my job is in there. Or, I see my dad. I see my mom. And then I'll say, okay, I put them in a court of atonement. I place myself into a full court of atonement with the person you saw in the box. And I asked to analyze our timelines and resolve any and all reason this energy in the black box with the stars on it exists. So you're giving a parameter that this energy here, instead of it being wide open with the parent and throughout the whole timeline, you're focusing on just the part that's hurting and causing the pain. And it works wonders. It may not take it all. It might go, if you go to the website, it's on courtofatonement.com, go /gift. I think that's what we want to say here. Oh, it might be I'll have to look it up. But if you go to the blog, scroll down, it's got a bunch of photos of gifts on it. That'll do it for you. So go to the blog, scroll down and find the packages. And that's a pain release technique. You can walk yourself through it. But anyway, the first time you'll do it, it's a great big box, and it only went from a 10 down to a 7. And then when they do it again, instead of it being a Mack truck size, you could put a dishwasher in it. It's a much smaller box, and this box usually gets smaller and smaller. You might touch something that makes it get bigger. Don't be afraid. Just go forward, do it again, because maybe the first time you were just working with this person on this one thing, but you know what? You have a whole lifetime with them. So, but almost always it goes smaller. I've only seen it go bigger once, but if it does, good. You've touched into something. Just keep going and trying this technique to remove it. And like I said, it's just, you don't need to see what happened. You just need to see who's standing in the box, what person. And sometimes people will say weird things to me, like, it's full of snakes. And I'll say, all right, well, put yourself in a full court of atonement with all the snakes and best resolve it and resolve that and bring in anyone involved. And so you'll see it's all written out for you on that sheet.
Yeah. And of course, just for anyone listening, all of the information for Amy Jo would be in the show notes. So of course you can always get hold of her. So I would love to get some more, success stories, things that people tried and came back with incredible success stories for anything. But of course, illnesses and pain is a favorite in the show.
Right. The one woman contacted me early on, and her mother was doing poorly. Her brother is taking care of her. He won't let anybody see her. He's angry at everyone, and he's really like sequestering the mother away from the family. And so we just used the Court of Atonement on it. And a week later, she calls back and she's like, "Oh my God, she goes, I did the Court of Atonement between my brother and my mom and my dad and my other brothers and sisters." And she goes, "He's changed completely. He's asking for people to come. He's rented, he's converting the garage into a guest house so we can come and stay. My other sister, who I haven't spoken to in 10 years, she has bought tickets for all of us to go on a cruise together, and the entire family is getting together to go on a cruise." And she goes, "We haven't talked in years." And all of this came about like in the period of a week. So yeah, things change. They change drastically. If they don't change, there's troubleshooting that you can go through, because people maybe are not identifying as themselves. They might have taken on so much of other people's energy. So there's things you can do to help them identify, but that's on the help page on the Court of Atonement website.
Yeah.
But if you don't see changes, then go look at the help site, but just throw it out there and give it a shot. You never know what's going to happen. I was in a DMV, and no one with Department of Motor Vehicles, we're trying to register the car. The line is screwing up. I was next in line for 4 hours. And so this other guy goes, he starts saying, I've been next in line for 2 hours. How long have you been here? And so this thing was really screwing up, and everybody was angry. They were, and I just put everyone there in a Court of Atonement. Just thought, hey, why not? So I threw it in the Court of Atonement, asked to resolve the conflicts between us. And people started saying, well, I've been next for 9 hours. How long have you been here? And we started laughing. The whole place started laughing. The machine fixed, righted itself, and we all got through. It was like I went up within 2 minutes of having done the Court of Atonement. And so use it for anything, they said. You can't hurt, you can't be harmed by it. Just try it for anything.
I love that. So I have one more question. You mentioned earlier, your mom, helping resolve conflicts, with people who already passed. What is the importance of doing that? I mean,
okay. Anybody who believes in ghosts believes that they have unfinished business, right? They're there, they're stuck because they have unfinished business. The Court of Atonement will help them solve that unfinished business.
So is that really for if we don't know if the ghost, if the person, if the soul, if it passed on or if it stick around, then is that kind of way helping it to?
Yes, and they have come to me with gratitude. No one's ever come to me and said, "Hey, well, I don't know, Robin Williams, he was a little." I didn't know Robin Williams when he was alive, but I used the Court of Atonement for him when he first passed. Or I used energy work. I don't even know if I used the Court of Atonement, but that I have since worked on the Court of Atonement by whatever has been said to me by spirits who have passed, and it made it where when you put a person who has passed into a full Court of Atonement, I say for the purpose of requesting transcendence assistance for them, it just takes them in. They get to do like the life review, but they can then alter their past. They can try to fix their mistakes using it. And so I've done things to try to make it a more pleasant experience for them. But they all have said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So.
Well, it sounds like a really, fascinating. Everything sounds fascinating. I was just curious because, my I guess limited understanding of soul plan and stuff like that is that in some way, some of the things that we are experiencing in this lifetime, it's kind of lessons that we created for ourselves. And so, I don't know. I was just wondering, hey, if I'm smoothing everything out, would that impact somewhere? Not in a judging way, just in a curious way, really. To
Okay, well, let's just let the guides answer. So give me just a second. Okay, and I'm getting like laughter on the other side, and they say, "Look around. How well does it look like it's working? That people are their lives are improving from one life to the next." They said, "If you look around, you can see that it's not working as well as we'd planned." And that this is actually helping to get the lives back kind of more on track of resolving the problems. One of the problems that we have is that we are not our soul, right? We are not our soul. Our soul doesn't dictate to us everything that it wants. We are the spirit that is um, very much its own creation. And we don't listen always to what our soul is wanting. And so when we step in, the soul is only going to accept what is right for it. It won't, if it's something that it's wanting, like I said before, if this is a soul lesson, nothing's going to change. But if it's not a soul lesson and the soul goes, "Hey, you got it, okay," then it all smooths over and moves on. Hang on one second. There more pressure on my ear. I know somebody has something to say. Let me see. They said the biggest problem is that people aren't like meditating and listening to their soul. They're just not. And if more people were meditating and listening to what their soul had to say, there wouldn't be as many problems in the world as there are. And that we're being influenced in ways that we have never been influenced before. We have the social media, we have television and radio that didn't even exist. Like 150 years ago, there was no communication beyond like writing a letter and Pony Expressing it. So that we have this inundated, that the reason that this is coming through for us as something to use is because we are being bombarded, is what they're saying, by information that doesn't even pertain to us, and we take it on angry and upset about something that's going on in another part of the world that 100 years ago we would have no idea it was going on until well after it was over. It would take like a month to get that information to us. And so we're talking about, I'm talking about guides who have lived 1,000 years, and they're saying this is new. It might be in the last 100 years, or I don't know how long. When I was a kid, nobody had a television. I mean, only rich people had televisions, and we finally got one when I was like 10. And so as a little kid, we didn't have a television in the house. My grandparents got one when I was like 7, and then we finally got one later on. But we didn't have that information coming through. Now, they did have radio for a while earlier, so that's why they're saying 100 years. But if you look at what's going on with the internet and being able to get this information, boom, 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 something happens someplace in the world, you hear about it now. You don't hear about it 2 hours from now. You hear about it within 5 minutes of it having taken place. And you know how much it has to do with you? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. But we internalize it and go, those bastards, they've done, and we get all upset. And it isn't even ours. It isn't ours to be mad about. But for some reason, we're sharing at this level that we haven't shared before. And the Court of Atonement is going to help level that playing field. So if I'm watching the news, throw it in the Court of Atonement. I don't watch the news. If the news hits me, we'll put it that way. I turned the news off in 1991.
Good idea.
I haven't watched the news since. And I had a heart attack in 1991, and it wasn't about anything that I was upset about. And the cardiologist, thank goodness, was smart enough to say, you are empathic. And he goes, you're taking on other people's energy and being upset for them when it has nothing to do with you. He said, turn that news off and never watch it again, because he said, it has nothing to do with you. And the minute that the news has something to do with you, your phone's going to ring. Someone's going to call you. And boy, has that been the truth. That nothing gets by. And I just start throwing things into the Court of Atonement as soon as I see it. And it really helps relieve the pressure. So I see this country did that to that country. I put it in a Court of Atonement. This country with that country has to resolve that, what's going on. And I'm not, we did see some miraculous results at first, but there's something that's supposed to be happening there. And it didn't shift the way we wanted, but it isn't ours. And you can feel that. You can say, okay, still don't like it, so do some more work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanna finish on a upbeat message. I mean,
right. Well, the upbeat message is this: if you watch the news, you have some power. Do something about it. Don't just internalize it.
Switch it off.
Right. So if you have a next question, go ahead. But I do want to make sure that that point is taken.
Yeah, no, I also stopped watching the news. It's yes, absolutely. But I want to know, before we go for the day, what message would you like to leave our listeners with today?
Okay, what message would I like to leave the messengers? Okay, that you have a lot more control over your life than you've been allowed to think. And that our thoughts create at what you think about today, you bring about tomorrow. So if you're worried about finances today, there will be more to worry about tomorrow. If you're worried about your health today, there will be more to worry about tomorrow. Take action. Start seeing, using the Court of Atonement is one thing, but allowing yourself to see the way you want your life to go, you will begin to create in that direction. Energy is always moving. Let's just say it's moving toward the direction of where we want to go, or it's moving away from where we want to go. And you want to make sure your thoughts are on what you're wanting instead of on what you're not wanting, and be focusing your thoughts forward. Using the Court of Atonement as a way of harnessing your thoughts and putting them into that direction of what you wanting to look for. And that's why we're seeing such drastic changes.
I love these messages. Thank you for that. One last question. Would you put yourself in a court of atonement with yourself?
Yes, all the time. And I have a Change Your Beliefs worksheet that I highly recommend people say you can download it off the internet. This one has handwriting on it, but it looks like this, and it says, "What's upsetting me?" And you say, what's upsetting me? I don't have enough money. And so you place each and every level of my consciousness that believes I don't have enough money into a full Court of Atonement. And you bring in the entirety of my family lineages, ask to analyze my timeline and resolve any and all reasons I believe I don't have enough money. And you're challenging those beliefs and dumping them. And so I bring in each and every level of my consciousness, which would be your soul, your spirit, the the repressed memories and ask to solve things that way. So yes, put myself into a full court of atonement with myself to resolve any and all conflicts within me. Just try it straightforward. It doesn't matter. You'll feel relief. You'll feel things change. And a lot of people notice that they're yawning, that they yawn when they do this because there's so much energy moving that it wants to move on your breath. But yeah, yawning, coughing, sneezing, anything, energy is going to explode and try to move.
That's amazing. There's so much out there to go and try. I mean, I say out there, I mean, of course, on your website, of the different treasures that you have there. So, Amy Jo, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of this with our listeners. My recommendations to said listeners is really go to your website, download all of these, ebooks and worksheets and stuff, and start practicing for yourself. Because
don't get over inundated in it. Just, if you want, grab Court of Atonement Explained. You can read that one. It's $5. And it really walks you through. It's the newest book. People who have financial problems, they might want Making Peace with Money is a really great booklet that people love. It really works. Yeah.
There you go. So anything that needs fixing, relationship, money, illnesses, pains, inner conflict, worldly conflict, it's all there.
It's all there.
I'm really excited. And anyone listening and trying it, please send us, your experiences and what comes up. What changed in your life after you tried the Court of Atonement. I'm excited to get some success stories or shocked stories or anything that.
Yes. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really a pleasure.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much. And of course, all of your information will be in the show notes so people can get in touch. Thank you so much, Amy Jo.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you.